All right. Thank you all for tuning into the show today. This episode of Macros Inc. Live is proudly sponsored by Inflatable Dartboards, the first and only dartboard designed for people who hate success. Why risk the stress of actually hitting a bullseye when you can enjoy the sound of soothing hiss on your board deflating after every throw? Perfect for perfect for family game night, passive aggressive office parties, or anyone who thinks safety first should apply to sharp projectiles. Each inflatable dartboard comes with a complimentary repair kit that you'll need immediately after opening the box. But wait, order now and you'll also receive an inflatable bowling ball because nothing says fun like watching a balloon slowly wobble down the lane. Inflatable dartboards, aim high, pop often.
Where
That's
do
our
you
first
find this
sponsor.
stuff?
Don't ask. I didn't. They came to us. They wanted to advertise on our airwaves, get
I
in front
say
of our audience.
I say this all the time, but if people want to know what it's like working here and me trying to direct this ship to get things done, this is what I deal with on a daily basis.
I mean, there's never a dull moment. You can say that, right?
No, that's
But
yeah.
what does it say about our audience though if we have an inflatable dartboard company wanting to get on our airwaves? It's a little bit. I don't know. I don't know how to take
Are you
that.
throwing the audience under the bus within 2 minutes of starting to record this show?
Not really our audience. It's more of a reflection of us and like the type of people that we are. Like, because if we're attracting an audience that wants inflatable dartboards, what does that say about us? Did we get a comment already?
But wait, there's more.
Oh yeah, there we go. Monica's tuning in. Hello, Monica. Thanks for tuning
Oh
in.
my god.
So today we do have a good episode for you guys, and we'll see what next week's episode sponsor is. That'll be interesting. But today
You
we're
guys are
going to talk
crazy.
about. I named it Beyond the Scale because we get we see a lot of people in the group and in coaching a lot of places that people are just, hey, the scale's not moving, and I've seen it ruin people's day. Like it upsets people, and and rightfully so. Like it can be very frustrating when you feel like you're doing everything correctly, and yet every day you get up and you stand on the scale and it shows the same number. So I get that, but I really thought it's important to understand that there are other measures of success than the scale. The scale is one tool among many that you can use to gauge your progress. And so I think to only look at the scale as your measuring stick is short-sighted. And so this episode we're going to talk about what are some other ways that we can measure our success. What other things should we pay attention to, and how do we apply that going forward so that we don't get discouraged? And if the number on the scale isn't moving, what does that mean? What are some potential reasons for that? So that's what this episode is going to be all about, and hopefully it'll help the people that you know kind of go to war with that scale every day. It's something we've talked about in the group before, but I just again thought it was important to put that out here on the airwaves. So, first place I think we should start, Brad. Y- you know, Setting the stage here is we know. I mean, adding on to what I said about that, it's not just the the scale, and that it's only one tool. The scale doesn't change. It doesn't tell you anything about what's changing inside your body, right? It doesn't tell you about muscle, fat, water, glycogen, hormones. So, and it doesn't tell you, anything about your strength, your energy, your mobility, your confidence, or any of the health markers that we talk about, right? So it's like an analogy I thought of before I did this was it's kind of like looking at your bank account balance without knowing your income, your expenses, your investments. It's like one number, no context, right? So, is there anything you would add to that I haven't talked about? Maybe we just dive straight into like what other things do we want to pay attention to of the things that I mentioned? Like we can dive into any of those, but you know, like what else do we need to pay attention to, right? Because obviously weight loss, and when we talk about losing weight, most people really mean fat. So there's fat loss, there's weight loss, there's health improvement. So we can dive into any of those. I'll kind of let you decide where you want to go, but I think we should get to all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack about body weight. And I don't want to make this a 6-minute episode, so I'll try to leave some meat on the bone here. But it is a measure of one part of your entire body, kind of like you mentioned. And I think a lot of times people either have the perspective of weight is the most important thing or weight doesn't matter at all. And the reality is it's somewhere in between. And it really is a measure of it's a measure of progress based on your goal is another way to look at it, right?
Yeah.
If you're trying to lose weight, great. If you're trying to gain weight, great. If you're trying to change your body composition, if you're trying to change your health, like just understand where it fits into the larger context of what you're trying to do, right? So for me, like my body weight, the number on the scale really hasn't been a major focal point for me for a long time. All right, but
Yeah.
I do weigh myself fairly regularly so I can kind of understand like how my daily habits are affecting my body, right? So I can kind of know, oh, like I haven't eaten very much in the last few days, or I've eaten probably a little bit too much, or I'm dehydrated, or I'm, fully fed, whatever. Like I've noticed that, like if I have a few days where I'm like pretty low energy and like I maybe don't feel great, and I go to the gym and my workouts are terrible, and I weigh myself and I'm like 5 pounds below what I should be, I'm like, well, I'm probably pretty glycogen depleted and I haven't eaten enough food,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's like it's a very contextual piece, and I think the big thing is the most important thing you can do when you think about body weight, decouple it from your identity. Like a lot of us have this idea of like I am my body weight, but you're not, right? That's just one measure. Like if my body as it currently set weighed 225 pounds, that would not be great for me. But like a professional football player at my height, that's probably the weight they need to be, right? So it's just one part of it, and it's really not. I mean, it's super important and it matters, but it really matters based on the context of where you're at in your journey and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Totally agree with all that. One of the things that I don't know if this is like a totally bogus example or analogy, but it's just this is how my brain works. I can't even explain it. But like one of the things I would tell people in the group is, hey, listen, if you are, let's just say, I don't know, I'm just throwing out a random number here, 180 pounds. You weigh yourself here on Earth, you're 180 pounds. Let's say you were to go to Mars. Here, what is that? Let's see.
What's
Let's say
Mars
you were to go to
gravity? A
Mars. You
third
weigh
of
yourself
Earth
on well,
or
so you weigh
60%?
yourself on Mars. How many pounds do you weigh? 180 pounds. 67.9 pounds on Mars is
Yeah.
what you would
So
weigh.
say it's
And
like 35 to 40% of Earth's gravity, I think.
and so my point is, okay, would you feel any better about how you like would you feel any better about yourself if you weighed yourself on Mars and it said 67.9 pounds? Like the answer would be no. You'd be like, oh, well, I guess no, because what you really want to change is how you look and the how you feel, and the fat loss is what you're after, right? So just seeing that number go down inherently doesn't like it wouldn't do anything for you.
The
So
world's most expensive weight loss program, a one-way trip to Mars.
that this is a preview of what's to come next year for the things that we're offering. But on a serious note, yeah, I just there's so many other things to pay attention to. Here's what I want to dive into. This is what I want to get your thoughts on because we've talked about like health markers before. When we pay attention to more about how we like, even if you're fitting, let's say you're fitting into clothes, your clothes better because they're looser, but maybe the scale is really hasn't changed much, but your clothes are fitting better. Let's say, or you go or you test your blood pressure at I don't know one of the stores that has those free blood pressure cuffs, and that's down. Your clothes are fitting better. You go to the doctor and you get your some of your health markers checked there, and you see improved cholesterol, or you're sleeping better. What do you think out of and not just limited to those examples, but what do you think in your mind, aside from the scale, would be the biggest like thing to pay attention to that would matter the most? Like of here's an indication that I'm making progress. Scale aside, what else would be a good indicator of that?
I mean, I think visually, like, do you feel like you're visually changing? How you feel subjectively, like how much energy you have, your mental health,
Yeah,
um, your blood sugar, your blood pressure, your lipids, your like thyroid levels, your sex hormones. Like those are all the things that generally are indicative of you're going in the right direction or the wrong direction.
How much of the when we see an increase in energy, how much do you think is like just placebo because you're excited and you have more energy, or how much of it is actually due to losing weight and or losing fat, let's say?
It's probably both. Like I don't know what percentage it would be. And I think that varies person to person, but it's definitely both,
When you
right?
lose
Like
fat or you lose weight, why do our energy levels increase?
well, it's more of like I think it's a few things. One, I think if I weigh 250 pounds, me moving around and trying to like get up and down the stairs, I'm gonna have way less. Like it's gonna be more difficult than if I weigh 180 pounds, right? Like so, just
Yeah,
the level of expenditure required to do basic things is way less. Two, I think y- your generally speaking, like your sex hormones improve, your thyroid levels improve, your overall like metabolic capacity improves. So like everything from subjective to objective things that impact energy and mood all improve up to a certain point.
yeah. So what would you tell someone if, let's say you saw, let's say after this episode you see someone make a post in the group and it's like, been doing this for 2 weeks, scale hasn't moved, I'm pissed off, I'm ready to give up. What do you think you'd say to this person?
Um, what kind of
I'm
mood am
putting
I
you on
in
the
that
spot,
day?
sort of, but well, right. I'm not giving you time to prep and put context behind your answer, but just
I mean,
blanket answer.
honestly, I would just ask them, do you think it's reasonable that you've spent the last 10 years doing nothing, that your whole life's going to change in 2 weeks of new behaviors?
So that's a great point, and I thought you might say that. That's why that's kind of one of the reasons I asked that,
And
because I think. Can you give us some context on that? You've made a point in the group before where you're like, "Hey, look, 10 years versus like it's really just expand on the time thing," because I love that example that you've given before, in that
yeah, I mean, I
perspective.
think it's, you know, it's human nature to want things quickly, right? And there's a lot of things in your life that, especially in modern society, that you can do to get things faster, right? You can order food instead of cook it. Um, you can order off Amazon instead of going to the store. Like, there's a lot of things you can hire out your landscaping. Like, there's a whole lot of things you can do to get things quickly. But what's really interesting is, with very rare exceptions, there's two things about the human experience that you cannot achieve quickly. It's going from being very unhealthy to healthy and going from poor to rich. Both of those things take an extraordinary amount of effort and time. And so I
Yeah,
think the people who become successful are the people who understand, if I've done something for 10 years, it's probably going to take me more than 2 weeks to fix it.
yeah,
Right? No, it's not necessarily going to take you 10 years to fix it. It might take you a year, but spending 10% of the time it caused you to get to the situation you're in is a small price to pay
right, exactly.
compared to the decade of uh, a general lack of effort and awareness.
And I think that's kind of the point that I like that you make, is when you put it into perspective like that. I think that really, it just helps to put that into perspective and take that into consideration when you're really looking at the grand scheme of things. It's really not as much of a mountain to climb as you probably think it is. The Another thing that came to mind was, it's like we talk about lifespan, but also health span. So I think one of the important things, and I know you probably think of this now more than ever. I know you did before you had a kid, but certainly now that you do have a kid, and that is like health span. Like how I want to be around for all of my kids until I'm really old, and I want to see their kids. And I know you probably feel, I know you feel the same, but like, how important is that factor, right? And I think, and I don't know, there's probably stats on this, but for every like, X amount of pounds lost, you can increase your life by X percent. I don't know the exact figures, but I know we have stats on that, right?
Yeah.
Do you know
Yeah, and
what they
that's
are off
also
the top of your
like
head?
it depends on the study and it depends on the population and all sorts of things. But like every reduction of BMI that's like over 25, like is a substantial improvement in longevity and health span. But
Okay.
like here's I'm going to tell you a story of what just happened this last weekend because I think this is the point you bring up. So we had a really good friend of mine, him and his family just built a really nice place up in North Idaho on a lake up there. And so he invited like a bunch of friends to come up and stay for the weekend. So we had like a friends weekend and it was a blast. We had so much fun. But we met his neighbor. Um, this guy was just, I met him for like 10 minutes, but this dude was hilarious. But what was really interesting is so he had 3 kids with him there, and their kids brought a fourth kid. This was his neighbor. And he's the dad's like 51, 52. And their weekend, I just watched. Their kids are all going to college for swimming. They were swimming like all around the lake. He was up like riding his mountain bike and going running. And then on Saturday, they just took the boat out and drove it 7 kilometers from the dock. And then the kids swam back while they like rode the boat next to them. And like the dad was jumping in swimming with them. Like at
That's pretty cool.
51 to be able to do those things with your kids, like how much cooler is that of like a life that you've given yourself and your kids than like, hey, we're
Yeah.
just gonna like sit around all weekend and just do nothing, right? It's like
Yeah.
what health span does is it allows you to live more of your life. Like if you want to go spend your weekend hiking a mountain, that's what health span does. Like you can do that into your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. You can go swimming with your kids. You can take them on mountain bike rides. Like you can do all of those things, right? But if you have a low health span, by the time you're 40, if you can't do much, like what experiences are you going to have with your kids and your family?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, like the last 10, 15 pounds on the scale, like maybe it impacts that, but like maybe be focused on like, how do I increase my cardiovascular capacity? How do I increase my like mobility? How do I get stronger? How do I do all these things that really allow me to live with my family the life that I want to live into my 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s? And like, I'm really,
Yeah.
we had kids late. I was 37. I'm still 37. And I was thinking, man, when he's 18, I'm going to be 55. Like, if I want to be able to play pickup with my son when he's
That's
18, like,
Yep.
I got to get my shit together, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm in decent shape now, but like, I got to take care of my joints and my body, and I got to, like, that has to be a bigger priority than it is right now if I want to sustain that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have some. I'd imagine you're gonna have some pretty good basketball games with him. I mean, but now
Assuming he
in your
plays, he
defense,
might not.
he's gonna follow in his dad's footsteps. Do you have a basketball hoop at your place yet?
No.
Well, that's going to be something I think you need to invest in because I mean, if he's got those Dieter genes, I think he's going to be a hooper. So that'll be fun for you guys though.
Or if he gets his mom's basketball prowess, he might not be.
I'm telling Marissa you said that. I think she'll be highly offended.
No, she won't.
Actually, I doubt that.
No.
So back to the scale real quick. I've also seen people wake up one morning, weigh themselves, and they're like, "Hell yeah, I'm down 3 pounds. Cool, I lost 3 pounds." What happens the next day, or even later that night? Oh, those 3 pounds are back on, or I'm up like it went up 5 pounds, so now I'm like 2 pounds heavier than I was before. What's up with the fluctuations, right? Like I mean, obviously there's water retention, there's glycogen at play, but like what's causing these things? Give us some insight into why we shouldn't pay too much attention to the daily fluctuations. Why what you really want to do is the overall like your weekly trends and like look at trends instead of what it shows from one day to the next.
Um, I mean, the thing is, it's like everything affects it, right? How much food you've eaten, how hydrated you are, whether you
The
peed.
position of the position of the moon.
Um, maybe, maybe not.
I bet it does.
how heavy your aura is that day, like how much you sweated,
Yeah.
if you've exercised recently because of your glycogen stores, like everything. Like your weight will fluctuate all the time. It's sort of like the best analogy I give people is like look at the stock market,
Oh God.
right? Like it
That's
fluctuates all day every day for like no reason. It's just the noise, and then it always goes up. Like the stock market always goes up. I mean, sometimes it goes down, but then it always goes back up. Like, and it's not because of, like, that's just the way the world is designed, right? We continue to print money. There's always more money in circulation every 10 years than there was 10 years ago, like
yeah.
on average, right? So the prices of things have to go up. Like that's a fundamental fact of the monetary system. Same thing with your body weight. If you are in a chronic energy deficit or surplus, your weight is either going down or going up. It's going to bounce around all the time because of all the things that happen in a given day.
Yeah. And I obviously a lot of our clients are women. So, the menstrual cycle can affect that. The hormones are at play. So I think it's more understandably, this is a complaint that is more prevalent among women, but I think they have, there's other factors that they need to understand and they do understand it are at play that are affecting that. So again, it's all the more reason to like, you know, calm down. You don't need to, don't don't read too much into it. Take a look at your weight over weeks. And I think you summarize it pretty succinctly is that it's the daily stuff is just noise, not trends. And just pay attention to the actual trends. And if you're doing things correctly, if you're weighing your food consistently, if you're taking in the right amount of calories, like it's going to change. It's going to go down eventually. Like it's the law of physics. Like your weight will go down. It may feel like in the time that it's like at the time that it's not. Sometimes you're going to feel like it's never going to change, but it will. So, um, yeah, and I think with some of the other things that we should consider is exactly that. If the scale doesn't move, it doesn't mean you're failing because again, like I mentioned before, is you might be losing fat and gaining muscle. The scale won't reflect that, right? So if someone loses 5 pounds of fat, gains 3 pounds of muscle, the scale shows a difference of 2 pounds, but maybe you're much leaner and stronger, right? And then also there is the myth too that weight equals health, right? Plenty of normal weight individuals have poor metabolic health, right? Plenty of overweight people have good labs and fitness levels. Look at NFL linemen. They're they're strong and their fitness is up, but they're obviously overweight. Um, so I think health is certainly multidimensional: blood work, lifestyle habits, mental health, movement. Um, so again, just to kind of I think reinforce those concepts, but also losing fat while gaining muscle is what a lot of people want to do. So keep in mind if you're trying to do both, the scale may drop even slower than normal. But again, if clothes fit better, your shape changes, you look different, you feel better. Those are all things that you definitely want to pay attention to. Do you want to? This is kind of related, but and we don't need to spend too much time on it. But body recon. There's so many people who are interested in like, how do I recon, right? And it's this. When I say this, I mean like people want to just. Wouldn't it be great if we could lose fat and build muscle simultaneously in a meaningful way? Like that's of course we would all want that. Do you think that's worth pursuing, and how realistic is that? And obviously, there's
Mm.
context here, and it's context dependent. But
How willing are you to go down the path of very aggressive pharmaceutical enhancement? Right.
me
If
personally, no.
if you run a very large amount of anabolics and very large amounts of growth hormone, thyroid, whatever, it is possible to build large amounts of muscle tissue and lose body fat at the same time. But it requires such an aggressive intervention.
Yeah,
It just unless
in
you're
a long
getting,
time.
regardless of your moral ethical stance on it, unless you're getting paid to do this, it's just not worth it.
Yeah,
Like long term. Um, and I want to come back to this conversation in a second, but if you're not willing to do that, the reality is it's technically feasible to build small amounts of muscle tissue while losing small amounts of body fat. The problem is it's very inefficient. You have to be super patient. You have to work very hard, and you have to be very diligent for a very long time.
So it's a
Like,
sustainability issue.
if you have years of like, I'm going to work my butt off, I'm going to be super diligent about the food that I consume, you could probably gain a couple pounds of muscle tissue and lose a couple pounds of fat over the course of a couple years. But most people just, that's not what they're looking for, right?
Right.
Um, so it's generally just a really difficult approach, and I think far more people get a lot of benefit out of focusing on weight loss first and then trying to build some muscle tissue from there. It's just a much more effective way to do it. Now let's circle back to the pharmaceutical enhancement discussion. I've been in this industry a long time. I know all the people that people look to on Instagram or whatever for like physiques. Most of them have either used in the past to build their base level of physique, or they are currently using.
Right.
Like, it is the vast majority of people. And they will, I mean, some of them will say it's TRT, whatever, but like, the reality is a lot of these people in their late 30s, early 40s that you see that have large amounts of muscle tissue and are relatively lean, they went through years where they used anabolics to build a large amount of muscle tissue and then stopped using it and then lost weight to get really lean. Like, that is the reality of the situation. And like, you could send me 100 Instagram accounts and I could tell you who they are. I could be like, yep, nope, yep, nope.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
So
think
I
when
think,
we see these transformations of people, like, a lot of times
yeah.
you see the before and the after, but you don't see the like during the middle, right?
Right.
And you also don't realize like, oh, well, from 27 to 35, they were running like anabolic cycles every 3 to 4 months for 10 years. They built this large physique while maintaining some level of leanness, and then they got really lean because they had all this muscle tissue that they'd built over years, and then they just dieted down to lose 15 pounds, and they look like gods.
Yeah. So what you just touched on is like, it's funny you mentioned this because what I was going to talk about next was you're talking about the process. And that's where I wanted to go next. And because behind the scenes, I know Brad at the beginning of the episode was kind of joking, like, "Hey, if you want to know what it's like to work here, here's tongue in cheek example." But one of the things that we do talk
Dylan
about
spends our
a
budget
lot,
on buying inflatable dartboards.
yeah, yeah. So, but we certainly recently over the last several months, last year or so, and even before that, we've talked about the importance of like the process and enjoying the process, right? Because if you enjoy the process, the outcome takes care of itself, right? And I think we can apply that to weight loss, right? So when clients stop obsessing over a single number like the scale or these other factors, and you just try to focus on enjoying the process more, you start stacking small wins instead of feeling defeated, right? If you can enjoy the process, then the results come. I mean, it's like when you, I don't know, trying to think of an analogy here, and I know you would use a basketball analogy. I'll just use a football one,
I
right?
don't know
But
why you would think I would do that.
but I when I was, I mean, I'm 39 now, so I'm not as good as I used to be. I'm slower now. But when I was like 28, 29, like really in my prime, I was really good at the sport. I was really good at football, and it wasn't like I was like just genetically blessed. It was just how much I loved playing, and I loved the process, and I loved going out there, and I loved practicing, and I loved running routes and all this. And it was just like those things by me enjoying the process is what made me good at that sport. And so how it's kind of like you get excited and like you start enjoying things. It's the same thing with weight loss. When people start, if you can just kind of fall in love with the process, you end up enjoying it more. And when you enjoy it more, you feel excited. And when you feel excited, you feel motivated. And when you feel motivated, you keep going. And then it just everything gets so much easier, right? Then the weight starts to come off because it's like, well, I'm not even this isn't even hard to me. I'm trying to enjoy the process here and the results are happening. I'm not really paying attention to the things that I would normally obsess over. I'm just in the process, right? So I know you're a big process guy. I mean, take us, through your thought process on that. Like, how important is it to really just pay attention to the process?
Um, I'll give you a personal view. The process is the safe harbor from life. I was thinking about this the other day. We hear things like workaholics, right? At some point, you get to, and this probably isn't true for everybody, but I know it has been for me. Doing the work slash being focused on the process is often the safe harbor from everything else that you're struggling with in your life, because it is action that you get to take, and it's the only thing you have control over, right? So if you think like people who bury themselves in their work, it's often not quite because they want to make more money or they're seeking status. I mean, that's always a part of it, but a big part of it is this is safe because this is where I get to focus on just doing the work.
Right.
And it feels good. And so one of the conversations I used to have with clients all the time, when they'd be like, oh, I don't really like working out. I don't really like all these things. And we would just kind of try to guide the conversation over time of like, what if you viewed the process of what you're doing and working on yourself as like the safe harbor from all the other stuff, right? Like, let's say you really struggle mentally with the relationship you have with your body, right? Like, you have body dysmorphia, you don't like how you look, you're not happy with the way you feel, the way clothes fit. What is the only thing that you can do? It's do the work, right? And so the hour a day where you're doing the work, like that's mentally the safe harbor, because you are just engaging in the action you need to do, and in that time frame you're doing it, like that's your safe space. And so a lot of times those conversations you can have with people is like the process becomes the place where you're most comfortable. Now that can
What
obviously
it,
be pathologized to a degree where people are like married to their work, or they just like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? But like that's also the other side of that coin.
Yeah. Would you have any advice for people on how to like fall in love with the process? How do you start doing that?
Um,
Fall in love with just doing the work.
I think a lot of it is it's entirely your perspective, right? Work is always work. Some days you're going to love it, some days you're going to hate it, but it always has to be done. Um, and so how do you get to love the process? I think you have to realize that being able to do the process is a gift,
So it's your perspective on that you have
right?
to view it as that.
How fortunate are we that we live in a time where we get to go to the gym, right? How fortunate are we that we live in a time where food is in such abundance that we actually have to stop and think to make good decisions long term? How fortunate are we that we live in a world where if we take care of ourselves, we get a longer time on this planet than anybody else in human history. And those years will be better than anybody else in human history. it really comes down to like how you view it, right? If your view your entire life is, ugh, I have to go do this, like it's always going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah.
And at some point you have to flip the script of what it means, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That it's essentially, and I mean that applies to pretty much everything, right? Like then if everything's a matter of perspective, it's how do you choose to see it? What are your beliefs about it? So no, I think that's a really good point. The other, well, and we've covered a lot here, so I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to chat about. But one of the things that I think is also important when you're looking beyond the scale, as the episode is titled, is what about things that are going back to what we've talked about being directly tied to longevity and quality of life. What about things like lifting heavier, doing more push-ups, let's say, running farther without having to stop? I think those are real progress markers that are, that do have a direct impact on longevity and quality of life. And we hear, like just the other day, there was someone in the group that was like, "Hey, I feel better in my own skin before this. Like, even if the scale isn't moving, I feel stronger. I feel more capable." And you could kind of see this person talking with more confidence, and it just got me thinking, like, it's a perspective thing. Like, you could just see, like, even if someone isn't like physically changing, and although again, lifting heavier, the things that I mentioned, doing more push-ups, running farther, those things are absolutely important, and you need to pay attention to those. But just the mindset shift that you can have is huge too. And one of the things that we are pretty big on with our coaching is a lot of it is a mental game too, right? So like, I think a lot of people will consider getting a coach for what we can do for them physically. And what a lot of people don't realize until they actually get into coaching is just how much is actually us helping people work on the mental game, the mental side of things. So like, how do I manage my time? Like, how do I start thinking about how to structure my day? How do I think about how I manage my time? What are my, like, a lot of it's mental, don't you think? Like, so much of what we do is just the
I
mental
mean, it's all
habits and
mental.
behavior side of things. Yeah.
It's 100% of what we do is mental, right? Because it all comes down to decision making, right? Sure, there's the physical action of like lifting the weight or putting the fork in your mouth, but like it's all decision making, which is 100% mental. Like
Yeah.
everything is mental.
Yeah. And I just think that's a perspective that can't be overlooked. It's so, and that's why I say, like, even if things don't appear to be physically changing, like, if your mindset is different, like, the body's going to follow, right?
Yeah.
Because what you believe dictates your actions. Your actions dictate how you look physically and how your
Yeah.
physical world
I mean,
is.
this kind of reminds me of a conversation I was having with somebody. Like maybe it was last year, it was sometime in the last year or so, and they're like, "Oh, are you worried about like AI taking over and like running your business into the ground?" And I thought about it for a second, and I was like, "Simple knowledge transfer is the lowest form of coaching.
Yeah, for sure.
If all we do is knowledge transfer, we shouldn't be in business,
For sure.
right? Like anybody can go find the information that we have. Like I'll give it to you, but that's not really what it is, right? It's like, okay, I've developed enough domain expertise to know what the best solutions to most problems are. The trick is, how do I develop a relationship with you that you trust me to help change the behavior of your life?
Hmm. Exactly.
That's huge, right? It's about developing those relationships and establishing that trust because changing your habits, whether you want to or don't, like that's a big change, right? Like you changing the day-to-day structure of your life is big. And so you have to be able to trust that the person who's helping you change it has your best intentions at heart.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, really well said. Yeah, I just so much of what we do is way beyond just teaching you how to track macros. Like that's just like a tiny fraction of it. But it's always been interesting to me that nutrition's 10% of the equation. It's like 90% habits, behaviors, working on the mental aspect of things. So and that's where we really see the best transformations, and people really make a lot of progress is when they take it to heart and then they understand the mental game and what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like we've covered a lot. Is there anything else you'd add? I know this is probably going to be a shorter episode than most, but I feel like we kind of covered the core concepts and things that we wanted to cover. But is there anything you would add? And if we have any questions, for anyone watching too, you can put them in the chat. Be happy to answer. But
I don't
you got to
think so.
give us something.
Mm.
Give us something random that is going on in your life that maybe people don't know about.
Dude, I'm so boring.
Is there anything exciting coming up for
Not that
you or
there is, but I can't tell anybody yet.
do I know what this is? Or is this personal or is this Macros Inc. related?
I mean, I would hope you've been paying attention.
Well, I can't tell if you're talking about something personal or not, but okay. You can be
Who knows?
you can obfuscate your whatever this is. Um yeah, I mean, I guess if you don't have anything to add,
I will say it's hiding in plain sight.
it's the gavel behind you, huh?
No.
It's the dinosaur. Did I know you had a dinosaur up there? Maybe I did. I just
Derek
never paid
3D
attention to
printed
it.
that.
Oh, really? Is that where you got it from? Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
There's like nothing you can't 3D print these days.
I mean,
I feel
that's
like
not true.
Well, I mean,
There's a lot of things you can't 3D print.
well, but are we saying can't as in like legally should not do that or physically not possible to print? Because those are two
Both.
different things. Yeah.
Can't print a human.
Yet.
You can't print gold.
Yet. Wait till we have like a mini fusion reactor that can then print any element you want. So you need a block of gold, here you go. Boom.
I don't think a mini fusion reactor is possible.
Well, we already have them.
I mean,
they're like we can produce like tiny amounts of helium with them.
yeah, but you know how much energy it takes to like
I'm not saying
produce
they're
gold?
efficient. I'm sure. I mean, I'm just saying they exist. I don't know how advanced they are, but
I gotta look up a random factor. I gotta confirm this before I say it. Okay. So, you know how with telescopes we can like use, so you know how every element when it's bombarded with light or it emits photons, like it has a very specific spectral signal, so you know if it's
Mhm.
hydrogen, whatever. So we
Sure,
can like
yeah.
see what elements are in a
it's how
star.
yeah, exactly. Yep.
So obviously a star is a giant fusion reaction, right?
Mhm.
And so what happens is hydrogen gets fused into helium, and then helium gets fused into heavier and heavier elements. And the reason a star is stable is that the outward energy from like, because basically every time there's a hydrogen fusion, energy goes out, right?
Mhm.
And then gravity holds it all together. So it's just like,
Mhm. Mhm.
so obviously once hydrogen forms helium and then helium, combines with something else and forms a heavier element, you get the heavier elements, right? That's where gold and all these things come
Yeah.
from. Do you know what element, when you see in the spectral signal of a star, signals that it has passed the point where it's run out of all its lighter elements, so the energy from the fusion reactions can no longer offset the gravity, so it's like imminent collapse into supernova? What is the element
I
that
feel like
signals that?
I feel like I knew this at one point. I don't know if I know it. I mean, would it
Iron.
be neon? Oh, iron.
Iron.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so
So
all of the gold, all of the platinum, everything we have is from
it's
dead
from
stars. All the carbon we have is from dead stars, etc.
no, that's cool. So basically we just need to kill the sun and we have a bunch of gold.
Well, then we would not be allowed to spend it. So
No, that's true. That's true. Well, we could for 8 minutes.
okay.
I
Uh,
love I love that you had to pause for a second and be like, the hell is he talking about?
the most expensive short-term party we've ever had.
All right. Well, I guess yeah, I don't know. This feels like an appropriate time to duck out of here. So I'm sad we didn't have any last minute questions, but I guess that just means we did a good job of telling the people what
Or
they
nobody
wanted.
was listening. That's the other.
Honestly, that's probably it. All right. Well, with that said, we're gonna duck out of here. I'm gonna cue this outro music. And thank you again for to Inflatable Dartboards for being our sponsor for this episode. We can talk about future sponsorships. All right, I'm out of here. Thank you all for watching. Until next time.